Great ideas that have been brought forward. I think we had some really inspiring speakers, and I do want to address one thing that I think that Canadians make a mistake of often. While we are perhaps a minority population-wise, we are peoples with the right to self-determination. And the issue of elections and bringing forward those issues, violence against women in general is an issue that's a no-brainer that every politician should be asked about. The issue of murdered and missing Indigenous women, it falls under the category of colonial-rooted racism. And it needs to have a different space in the sense that we have a colonial history. We have been colonized. Immigrants who come from other parts of the world, some are refugees, but some are coming here without any knowledge of the history of Canada. And some of them are coming here with more of a knowledge of history of Canada than Canadians themselves. So there's a great, gap and paradox that we see going. What we are living under, though, and as the blanket umbrella thing, is unregulated free market economy that allows the perpetuation of the abuse of Indigenous people's rights, of human rights, of the rights of the earth. And while I agree with Aurélie that our sister from the south, Natalia, your story is inspiring, and I'm always inspired by the strength and resiliency of Indigenous women from Latin America, because you mobilize. You mobilize in a way that is badly needed in Canada. We have periods of it where we go through. We had, after the Oka crisis, there was a lot of things going on, discussion, and we talked about land rights, and there was a resurgence of Indigenous languages and identity, or the idea that they're being threatened. And then it went back down, and then it went to the fact that, and I think Anne-Marie, you talked about it, one day we're talking about land rights, the next time we're talking about Indian residential schools, and it kind of diffused the issue of Indigenous people's right to self-determination. Not that that it shouldn't have been spoken about, but it just kind of diffused it in the sense that we're looking, Canadians are looking at Indigenous people as victims. We're not victims. We are survivors. It took over 100 years for us to get to the point that we are in our communities with all the social and health problems. It might take another 100 years before we recover from those colonial laws and policies. And yes, again to my sister Natalia, we are living in a low-intensity war. It's unnamed. It comes under the guise of policies and programs. It comes under the guise of things that say we're going to have negotiations on land. But I think what we see coming out of these discussions, and I've been doing this for 24 years, and we keep kind of coming back, regurgitating the same things that we're doing, and what we need is a really good push. We need Canadians to get off their ass and learn their history. We're tired of teaching you. We know our history. It's about time Canadians learn their history. And it's about time you got your government to have, one man to have less power than the President of the United States. He's got more power than the President of the United States. It's very evident. And so you need to change your parliamentary system. And again, I'm inspired by the women from the communities that are doing things on the ground and educating their own people, because our customary laws teach us about how to live on the land, how to live with the land, how to live with each other. And, we have to keep reminding Canada, the United States, all these mining corporations, that we are the title holders to this land. I've gone to many conferences, and I can tell you personally, in my own community, None of the discussions that I've ever attended and all the times that I was going to these conferences has ever affected my community in a positive way. We need to reach the people at the ground level. We need to stop talking and take action, because the government is a corporate-controlled government. And the mining companies have lots of money to divide and conquer. How are you going to help the people in the community who are putting up a blockade because they're saying, this is it? If you come, you're going to destroy our salmon. You're going to destroy our rivers. You're going to destroy where our medicines are. And then we're criminalized. And yes, there should be lawyers that are out there that are ready to get people out of jail. There should be a fund for Indigenous people who are arrested in defending their rights. And there should be something again for families. And we should take away the control of our trust fund here in Canada from the federal government, who's taking 64% of our trust fund for their bureaucracy. Mining in Canada, yeah, they were successful. Yeah, they exploited the land, they exploited the people. That's how success is. That's how I see mining success. I see mining as a dinosaur. And we got to stop. We've got to stop feeding into the consumerism that says, here's the new iPhone, go get it. And people waiting in line, at 5 o'clock in the morning to get the new iPhone. All the things that we do in our natural lives, that's where we need the different mindset. And I like the idea of blogging. I wish I knew how to write or even speak Spanish, because I would look forward to a blog from our sisters from the south. I look forward to blogs from our sisters from the north and out west. We should hear each other's stories, and I think that's what needs to be created. Is those after when Ida Lamore was they had these little web seminars. We don't have to travel on a jet plane that's going to contaminate the biosphere and everything else. We can have web seminars for our elders. Imagine our elders talking to another elder in the East. So we got to help those elders who don't understand the technology. And research methodologies, we had OCAP from NAHO, the now defunct NAHO, thanks to some of the Aboriginal organizations. It was a national Aboriginal health organization, and it was doing great research on Aboriginal people's health. Because we're all human beings at the end of the day. If you put a radioactive pellet in my drink, I'll die just as anybody else. We are all equal on that level. And I think that's what we need to keep in mind. But I would encourage all the organizations who are here to continue this kind of work, perhaps take some of the ideas that were promoted to make sure that there is a voice for Indigenous women. We shouldn't have to say Indigenous women should be included in, because our rights are human rights. And nobody in this world has the right to say that we don't have human rights. Nobody in this world has the right to say we don't have human rights as Indigenous peoples. And one day I hope we're going to stop saying, oh yes, and the special situation of Indigenous women. When we go to the UN, it's always like, it's a conference for Indigenous women or just women. Where are the men? I'm glad there's men here, but where are the men listening to the women? In the old days in our customs, the men listened to the women. They sat there and they discussed with the women. But colonial structures are not allowing that. And that's where I think, Viola, you were talking about Quebec Native women. We were talking about decolonizing that. Because the old boys network out there is still trying to squash the voices of women and say that even if you have a law degree, you're supposed to go get them a coffee. This is the attitude that we're still under. So we have a lot, I think, to think about. We have a great organization that has allowed us to have this forum. I want to thank Kairos for hosting this. I want to thank all the presenters, Anne-Marie, Elana, and Nathalie and Aurélie. Thanks again, and thank you to all for coming here today and sharing with this.